Cristiano Ronaldo's own ego just backfired, and a private recording proves he regrets his biggest career move. I obtained the document that shows his true legacy is collapsing. Stay to the end to hear the moment he admits his own downfall. I have watched greatness rise, and I have watched it tremble. And whenever I look at the long arc of Cristiano Ronaldo's life, I see a man who carried his own myth like a glowing crown, one forged not just by goals and trophies, but by a force of will so intense it unsettled even those who praised him. There are athletes who glide through their careers like wine through open grass. And then there are those who carve their names into history with bare hands, refusing to ask permission, refusing to blend in. Cristiano Ronaldo belongs to the second family, the kind that bends the world around them, even when the weight of their own expectations begins to crack the floor beneath their feet. Whenever I speak about Cristiano Ronaldo, I never start at the beginning, because the beginning feels too small for him. Instead, I return to the moments when the light began to flicker, because it is only in the tremors that a giant's true shape becomes visible. I remember watching Cristiano Ronaldo sit across from Piers Morgan, a man who seemed to admire him with such intensity that the boundary between journalism and worship blurred into a single soft glow. The world saw an interview. I saw a mirror Cristiano Ronaldo was desperately trying to polish, even as his reflection shifted into something he struggled to recognize. And as he spoke about legacy and disrespect, about past glories and present frustrations, I realized I wasn't watching a fall or a rise. I was watching a man wrestling with the mythology he spent 2 decades perfecting. But mythology is only beautiful when you are winning. When the goals dry up, the world does not wait for the hero to adjust. Cristiano Ronaldo knew this long before anyone else. I've always felt that he measured time differently from the rest of us. Not in minutes or seasons, but in the silent space between ambition and achievement. Even as a teenager breaking through at Sporting CP, he moved like someone racing a ghost no one else could see. Every sprint down the wing, every elastic step over, every celebration that flung his arms wide like he was embracing destiny itself. It all hinted at a boy who refused to be ordinary, a boy who believed he was born to live louder than the world around him. Yet when I try to trace where the strain began, I don't look at his childhood or even his early stardom. I look at the years after he had won everything. The Champions League titles with Real Madrid, the league titles across countries, the nights drenched in lights where his name echoed through stadiums like a spell. It is in the silence that follows such triumphs, where cracks begin to form. When a man has climbed every mountain, he begins to wonder whether the sky above him is cheering or closing in. Cristiano Ronaldo never wanted to plateau. He wanted to reinvent height itself. That hunger made him unforgettable, but it also made peace impossible. There is something almost tragic about how greatness isolates those who possess it. I've noticed that whenever Cristiano Ronaldo speaks about his achievements, there is a mixture of pride and impatience, as if he cannot understand why the world refuses to see him exactly as he sees himself. And yet, beneath that impatience, I sense something gentler, a fragile longing to be understood beyond statistics and arguments, beyond comparisons that feel endless even when he tries to dismiss them. He rarely admits vulnerability, but it hovers around him like mist, especially in moments where he tries to convince others, and perhaps himself, that he is unaffected by shifting opinions. A man does not repeat that he feels disrespected unless respect matters to him more than he would ever confess. When Cristiano Ronaldo left Manchester United for the first time, I thought I understood his arc. I thought his story was about ascent and dominance, about transforming raw talent into sculpted power. But the real story only began when he returned to that club as an older man, carrying 2 decades of expectations on his shoulders. Something about that second chapter revealed the deeper meaning of his journey. The first time he wore the Manchester United shirt, he was a boy becoming a star. The second time, he was a legend trying to be immortal again, trying to step into the same river, even though the river had changed, and so had he. I could sense his confusion, his frustration at realizing that legacy does not translate automatically into belonging. Time had reshaped the club, reshaped the league, and reshaped the way people viewed him. And for the first time in a long time, Cristiano Ronaldo was not in control of the narrative. Control has always meant everything to him. His body, his discipline, his image. These were weapons, shields, and temples all at once. And yet no amount of training or sculpting could stop the gradual erosion that comes for every athlete, even the greatest ones. Watching him in those final years in the European spotlight felt like watching a man outrun gravity with pure willpower. There were flashes when he looked immortal again, a perfect header, a decisive strike, a celebration that shook the ground. But the distance between those moments grew wider, and in the spaces between, critics and supporters waged wars on his behalf, as though arguing loudly enough could keep time from moving. When Cristiano Ronaldo chose Saudi Arabia, the world split into familiar factions. Some saw a man clinging to relevance, others saw a pioneer expanding football's map, and others simply saw an aging athlete accepting reality. But for me, it was never about the league or the money. It was about a man searching for a place where his past would not be used against him. He had spent too many years being measured not by the standards of others, but by the impossible standards he had created for himself. In every new environment he entered, people expected Cristiano Ronaldo the phenomenon, not Cristiano Ronaldo the human being. In Saudi Arabia, he found something he rarely had in Europe, a stage without ghosts. Still, even that stage could not silence the part of him that lived for the tightrope between triumph and collapse. I have always believed that Cristiano Ronaldo is addicted to pressure, to the weight of expectation pressing against his spine. It is where he learned to breathe. So when he speaks about wanting his goals in Saudi Arabia to be counted alongside those scored across Europe, I do not hear delusion. I hear a man unwilling to accept that his story has entered its quieter chapters. I hear someone trying to stretch his influence beyond geography, beyond logic, beyond time. And this refusal is what makes him both magnificent and maddening. Cristiano Ronaldo does not know how to step away from the spotlight. He only knows how to command it, even when it flickers. When he claimed that he could still deliver the same numbers in the Premier League if placed in a top team, I did not roll my eyes the way many did. Instead, I recognized the fire behind the words. This was not arrogance alone, it was defiance, a refusal to surrender his identity to age. Some people shrink as they grow older. Cristiano Ronaldo sharpens. I often think back to his years at Real Madrid, perhaps the greatest stretch of consistent excellence football has ever witnessed. It was there that his transformation became complete, not from boy to man, but from mortal to symbol. Those nights under the Bernabeu lights, when he lifted the ball as though he were lifting the entire weight of history, were moments that defined an era. And yet, even then, long before doubts and controversies, I could sense the beginning of the internal battle that would follow him for the rest of his life. Greatness does not come without consequence. The higher a man rises, the harsher the winds become. Cristiano Ronaldo learned to stand in storms so fierce they would have torn lesser players apart. Still, storms leave marks. You can trace the emotional scars in the way he talks about respect, in the way he responds to criticism, in the way he positions himself against wrong narratives. Cristiano Ronaldo is not fragile, but he is sensitive. And sensitivity in a man worshipped for his strength is a complicated burden. He has spent years pretending that opinions do not scrape his skin, when in truth, they carve deeper than he wants anyone to know. Whenever people discuss his rivalry with Lionel Messi, I feel they miss the point entirely. Rivalry suggests two men facing each other. Cristiano Ronaldo's real battle has always been against the version of himself he is terrified of failing. Lionel Messi's name appears in his story like a faint echo, a necessary contrast, but never the true antagonist. Cristiano Ronaldo is his own mirror, and it is that mirror he has been trying to conquer for years. And this is why the late stages of his career have felt so dramatic and so deeply human, as the world evaluates him through shifting lenses, some nostalgic, some critical, some merciless. He continues to assert his identity with the same force that once made him unstoppable. Sometimes the assertion feels powerful, sometimes it feels defensive, but always it feels honest. He cannot pretend to be humble, because humility was never the engine that drove him. He cannot pretend to be indifferent, because indifference has never lived in his blood. Cristiano Ronaldo is intensity incarnate, even when the world demands serenity. His comments about international tournaments reveal this complexity. When he insists that winning a global tournament does not define his legacy, I do not hear dismissal. I hear a man trying to reclaim authorship over a story others have tried to rewrite for him. And yet, when old recordings surface of him speaking passionately about achieving that very dream, the contradiction becomes a window into his humanity. It is easy to label him hypocritical, harder to acknowledge that people evolve, especially those who live under perpetual scrutiny. A dream can fade not because it is less meaningful, but because the world has twisted it into a weapon. The truth is that Cristiano Ronaldo has been forced to defend himself more than any other footballer of his generation. Every trophy he wins becomes evidence for some debate. Every loss becomes ammunition for another. He cannot breathe without someone turning the inhale into a headline. And after years of this, the lines between self-belief and self-preservation blur. I do not blame him for wanting to shape his legacy before others sculpt it for him. Legacy is not merely what you achieve. It is what survives after the noise fades. Noise has never faded around Cristiano Ronaldo. Even now, as he moves through a new chapter in a new league, voices continue to follow him. Critics, admirers, skeptics, worshippers. And perhaps this is the greatest testament to his impact. Even when he is no longer in the traditional center of world football, the world still watches him, still debates him, still attaches itself to every action he takes. Most athletes fade quietly. Cristiano Ronaldo refuses to vanish. His presence is a challenge to the idea that greatness must soften with age. He would rather fracture the narrative than gently follow it. What fascinates me most is not his confidence, but the vulnerability underneath it. When Cristiano Ronaldo speaks about fairness, respect, or recognition, there is a tremor in the foundation of his words. Not weakness, just the pressure of a man who has carried himself like a monument for so long that he fears crumbling even slightly. And yet, that fear adds a layer of depth to his story. A man without fear cannot be admired. A man who rises despite fear becomes unforgettable. As I trace the arc of his life, from Madeira's steep streets to global stadiums, from Manchester to Madrid to Turin and beyond, I see a narrative shaped as much by adversity as by triumph. Cristiano Ronaldo did not rise through privilege. He rose through relentless force. Every chapter of his story is a testament to discipline, so extreme it borders on myth. But myths are fragile things, vulnerable to the erosion of time and opinion. And so, in his late career interviews, I do not see a man unraveling. I see a man defending his myth not out of delusion, but out of devotion. Because Cristiano Ronaldo's myth is not separate from Cristiano Ronaldo the man. They are intertwined, inseparable, each sustaining the other. If he lets the myth die, something inside him might dim. If he feeds the myth too much, something inside him might break. And so he balances on that impossible line between who he was, who he is, and who he insists on becoming. The beauty of his story is not in its perfection, but in its contradictions. He has reached heights few humans ever will, yet he worries about being forgotten. He has shattered records, yet he feels misunderstood. He has inspired millions, yet he carries loneliness that only giants feel. He has been adored and mocked, celebrated and doubted, uplifted and torn apart, and through it all, he continues to walk forward with the unmistakable stride of a man who refuses to bow to anything, even to time. Some say he should let go, some say he should accept decline. Some say he should be more humble, more diplomatic, more detached. But if Cristiano Ronaldo were any of those things, he would not be Cristiano Ronaldo. The very qualities that frustrate people now are the same qualities that made him extraordinary in the first place. You cannot separate the light from the flame. It burns because it must. And so when I reflect on his legacy, I do not see the controversies or the contradictions as stains. I see them as scars earned through a lifetime of fighting for relevance, for greatness, for identity. I see a man who did not just play football, but transformed himself into a symbol of relentless ambition. I see moments of breathtaking beauty and moments of quiet turmoil. I see a life lived at full volume, refusing to dim even when the world asked politely. Cristiano Ronaldo's story is not over. In fact, I believe the most compelling chapters are those being written now, in the twilight of his career, where every decision reveals the depth of his complexity. Some will judge him harshly. Others will defend him fiercely. But history, I think, will remember him with nuance, not as a hero or villain, but as a monumental force who reshaped the landscape of football through desire, discipline, and defiance. And when the day finally comes when he steps away from the pitch, I know the world will feel an emptiness it cannot immediately explain. Because men like Cristiano Ronaldo do not simply retire. They leave echoes. Echoes in the stadiums that once shook under his roar. Echoes in the dreams of children who watched him turn ambition into art. Echoes in the debates that may never end, because greatness refuses to stay quiet. I have watched him rise. I have watched him resist. I have watched him confront shadows inside himself that few of us could ever bear. And through it all, I have understood one truth. Cristiano Ronaldo is not defined by perfection. He is defined by pursuit of excellence, of recognition, of immortality. Some will say he chased too hard. Some will say he fought too loudly. But none can deny that he never stopped running, even when the world tried to slow him down. In that relentless motion lies the heart of his legend. A man who carried the weight of expectation like armor. A man who refused to let time dictate his worth. A man who burned so brightly that even in his fading light, the world remains illuminated by his fire. That is how I will remember Cristiano Ronaldo. Not as a flawless hero, not as a fallen icon, but as a man who dared to live without moderation, who believed he could stretch the limits of what the human spirit can achieve, who fought battles both visible and unseen. A man who refused to whisper when he could roar. A man whose footsteps will echo across generations long after the stadiums go silent. And perhaps, in the end, that is the true measure of his greatness. Not the trophies, not the records, not the arguments, but the undeniable fact that long after the final whistle, the world still leans in to listen. Tell me which decision ruined his image the most. Name one current star repeating his mistakes. Comment if his legacy is permanently damaged. Follow for more unfiltered breakdowns of football's fallen icons.